Well, good day, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of WTF Walk the Floors. I'm Stephanie Ledger with First Rate Hospitality, and I'm joined with my co host, Michèle Kline of Kline Hospitality. Hey, Michèle, how are you today?
Hi, Stephanie. I'm doing wonderful. And this is one of my favorite topics, what we're going to talk about today, which is gratitude and gratitude at work.
Yay.
How do we apply it and how can it benefit? And for that reason, we have Brian Proctor here, who is the creator of Tuesday Thanks, which is a podcast where hospitality professionals can come in and join in the gratitude party and thank someone that made an impact in their career. So, Brian, thank you so much for being here and participating. We've had you on the show before, but this is definitely a great topic for you. So, tell our audience, for whoever doesn't know you, a little bit about quick background and your business. Then let's talk about the podcast, and then I'll get you started with the first question, which is, what are the tangible benefits of practicing gratitude in the workplace?
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me back. That's always nice to get a call back. And second, thanks for those lovely pictures of you guys. Your eyes in those expressions on the intro are absolutely hilarious. So love that. So I have Leeds Hospitality Group, which has a platform called Tuesday Thanks, where we have a podcast where we interview senior industry leaders and talk a little bit about their journey and allow them the chance to thank somebody who helped them along the way. And we also have the YouTube channel called Tuesday Thanks Take 5, where people come on, take 5 minutes and thank one individual only, which is always hard. Only allow them to thank one individual. And so we do that. And then I'm a lifelong hotel guy with Westin, Sheraton, Four Seasons, Starwood, you name it. So I'm an old guy. But so that is a little bit of the history. And to answer your first question, really, I'm going to give you the simple answer, and then we can dive in with any questions and stuff. But practicing gratitude at work on a daily basis, obviously the simple thing is it creates happier teams, right? And if you have happier teams, what does that mean? That means you have less turnover. And if you have less turnover, what does that mean? Well, you've got more operational continuity. You have more innovation from your employees. And if you have all of that going, then you become the employer of choice. People want to work with you and for you. And at the end of the day, if you do all those four things right, the big win at the end is you're a much more profitable hotel, company, or whatever business you're in. So that's the simple answer. And of course, saying that everybody's happier, blah, 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 is easy, but there's data to back it up. Glassdoor surveyed people, 81% said they'd work harder for a more grateful boss. The American, I always get this one wrong, American Psychological Association said that companies that had a high level of employee gratitude and recognition, their voluntary turnover was 30-something% less than all the other companies. And then the last data point I'll throw at you is Harvard Business Review. They studied a whole bunch of companies, and the ones that had, again, the high level of employee gratitude had about a 41% less absenteeism rate than other companies. So again, that all ties back into that continuity, the happiness, less turnover, more innovation. So that's the easy, quick answer. But that's what I've found since I've studied or started this gratitude journey as a second career, so to speak.
I love that, Brian. I would add to that the fact that gratitude can push you with resilience through a moment of crisis, right? Because if you're really able to look around and see what you're grateful for and recognize those things, then in that moment where you're facing a challenge at work, it's so much easier to push through it with grace.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
And my point would be also too is like inspiration as well, is because how many times that you have talked to your other colleagues, or even hearing it in the industry of being like, this was a great boss, this is who I inspire when I become a leader, I want to be just like them. And a lot of it is with their gratitude and their the positivity that they are creating and even developing other leaders too.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because that's one of the learnings. I've interviewed now over 150 people, all levels of leadership within the hospitality. And that's one of the things
Wow.
all speak to is having experienced gratitude from a senior leader. And then they say, yeah, now I've got to go and do the same thing. So all of that, it's funny that you mentioned that because that's a huge learning that almost 140 of the 150 have said some version of that.
Wow. And that's a great lead in to the next question is how can leaders effectively foster a culture of gratitude in their teams?
Well, again, I'm going to go with the simple answer because I'm a simple man. I'm not the sharpest tack in the box. But what I found is, practicing it on a daily basis is the easiest way to do it. Now, how do you do that? And how do you incorporate that into work versus just normal everyday activities? And so we've actually developed a 15-day challenge for people at work, and we give them actionable items and activities that as a leader, you can really focus in. It takes you 5 minutes a day to plan out the day. But it's things like, okay, I've got a one-on-one session with one of my managers today. Lead it off with something gratitude-based. Thank that individual for something. Could be personal, could be work-related, but something that they've done. Your stand-up meetings. Start the stand-up meeting with gratitude. Two of the practices that I always did when I was a GM was I sent a handwritten thank you note to one person every day, one guest every day, whether I knew them or not. And I just talked to some of the employees front of the house and said, who am I thanking today? And I'll just give you a quick example. But one day the hostess in the restaurant said, oh, Randy Marshall is in having breakfast. It's his second visit. I said, great. Wrote him a thank you note, slipped it under his door. That night he came down. Long story short, he was so blown away that he got a handwritten note from a GM that we'd never met. He booked his 2 annual regional tire meeting. He was with Best Tires at the time, meetings with us for the next 2 years. And to this day, he's retired down in Florida. We're still friends. We still talk. So
wow.
those type of things. And then the other thing that we ask them to do is do a daily thank you call, right? Now, this can either be, again, to a guest. It can be to a remote employee, especially these days when you don't see everybody. It can be a client, a supplier, a vendor, but just map out that one call. Because I think what happens is when your employees see you doing that, that'll trickle down. But those are some of the things that you could do on a daily basis, in my opinion, to start infusing culture of gratitude within your organization.
And I like too how how you're saying it for 15 days. So you could be like, okay, I'm going to wake up today and we're going to change the culture and we're going to embrace, having gratitude. It's not saying, okay, well, we're so far now in a negative spot in my department, but now we can say, okay, we can start by these little things one by one and starting to doing those things and being able to now start the process for the change. So I think that's great too, that you can say, okay, today's the day we're going to start implementing it.
Well, and the other thing just to add on to that is, gratitude, in my opinion, is not the be all and end all, although I love what I do. But to me, it's just one more tool in that toolbox of recognition, right? It's one more way to enhance your existing recognition programs. The good thing about this one is it goes outside of just your employees and your team. It can go to guests. It can go to suppliers. Think about all the times you've dealt with suppliers when you've needed something. Which supplier comes through the best is the one that you've got the best relationship with. So give them a call and thank them.
I love that. Brian, let's bring this down to the team member level, right? So we talk about what are those things that the leaders can do to not only show gratitude, but also show the rest of the team how it's done. Now, if I am a line level employee, what are some of the tips that you have that you believe or you have seen that can really move the needle?
Well, I think here again, it starts at the top, right? Because let's just say front desk for an easy example. If my front office manager is doing all the things we've talked about, then I'm seeing that on a daily basis. I can now take that forward a couple different ways. I can be in the cafeteria with lunch, sit next to a room attendant and thank them for the great work they're doing at turning the rooms over so quickly. I can then do the same thing with a guest. I can do it with fellow staff members. all of those things. So the line staff seeing the leaders do it will then open their eyes to say, okay, how can I do gratitude within my world? And each one is a little different. It could be the same thing as the restaurant server going in and thanking the steward. Hey, all the dishes, all the flatware, all the silver, glass, china, it was great today. Thank you so much. Imagine when the last time that young steward got a thank you like that. And then that just blossoms out. So I think very easily, if they see it coming from the top down, they're exposed to it on a daily basis, they can start branching it out in very simple formats.
I like it. And it's also too, it's just a trickling effect throughout as well, because now that steward may now go and thank someone else to being like, wow, I'm feeling in a great spirit right now, appreciative for having the job. And, now I have my colleague and I'm going to tell him, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Showing up on time. I never have to stay later, just simple things like that and trickling it down to others.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So now let's move into, there's some challenges that may happen as well.
Go ahead.
But, how can we, if this is happening, how can we overcome it when we're trying to implement this into it? Because we may have some negative Nancy's that's like, I'm not buying into the Kool-Aid, or, wherever their responses may be. And here you are as a leader really trying to change the culture. But, how can the leaders being able to overcome challenges that may arise?
Yeah, I think, as we all know, everything goes wrong on a daily basis in a hotel. There's going to be a pipe burst. You're going to be short-staffed. There's going to be weather, hurricanes. I mean, all the gamuts, right? Budget meetings, corporate guys showing up unannounced, all those things, and the negative Nellies of the world, as I used to call them. But I think, from a standpoint, I always look at it, if you're well planned and well thought out, you can kind of work around some of these things. And so if you take 5 minutes at the beginning of your day or the end of your day before the next day and kind of say, okay, here's the things I want to get done tomorrow as it relates to handwritten notes, phone calls. I know I've got a one-on-one with Stephanie, and I've got a team meeting at Michèle's department. These are the things I want to get. So when you get there, you've got it all settled. You're not scrambling at the last minute to say, okay, what do I need to thank Stephanie for? I've already thought of that, and I've already got it in place. The negative Nellies, what I've always found with them is if you encircle them with good people doing the good things and demonstrating all the stuff we've talked about, they're going to either leave, which is not a bad thing sometimes, or they're going to slowly adapt to the environment. If you provide a negative Nelly with an environment where she can be negative all the time, she's going to be negative all the time. So I've always been a firm believer of committing to the time to think about what you want to do, because every day you go into it. New Year's Eve one year in Indianapolis when I was a GM, we had the poor young girl in the gift shop was attacked by her boyfriend. He stabbed her 15 or something times with a pair of scissors. She comes running out. A front desk kid, Mark Compte, jumps over the desk, tackles the guy. We get all that settled down. The girl's fine. She lives. I mean, he obviously didn't know how to stab someone with the scissors because it was terrible. But, all that shoots your New Year's Eve day to craziness. But because we were well planned with everything else, you could then continue doing things. And obviously the amount of gratitude that was shown to Mark was amazing. And to this day, he's a hero to that young lady and to the rest of us. But those things happen. So I just think if you plan for your day, you're going to be way ahead.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Being proactive instead of reactive. But that's a crazy example.
Well, we've all had them. We've all had them.
Oh, yeah.
So for anyone who is not actually watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn, I'm still having trouble closing my mouth after everything I heard. Wow. I want to say that is the WTF moment of the show.
You with a name like WTF, you got to have some good stories. I've got to tell you.
That's so wonderful. Brian, one last story. Can you share a story of when you were in a leadership position, or even with the line of work that you do today, where you're still connecting with people on property, can you share that one story where just by that simple thank you or that simple recognition of I see you, you feel like you impacted someone's life in a way that they will never forget?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess we could go back to the Mark Compte story. We showed that as a company, and that was with Starwood at the time, this was a pretty big deal, right? And pretty traumatic for everyone around the hotel. We had to close off the lobby and stuff. And what I thought was great was we worked very closely with the corporate team. We said, hey, listen, we've got to show some form of big thanks, not just recognition, but true thanks. And so Starwood, Mark was the first recipient of the Hero Award at Starwood. And so
wow.
by virtue of doing that, I think Mark I know he was visibly moved when the president flew in to present him with a nice little thing, and we had a nice event in his honor. So I think, ensuring that in something like that case, that we wanted to make an impact with Mark and make sure that he really knew we were so grateful for what he had done. Obviously, the young lady was very grateful, but we as a group and as a company and as a family showed that. So I think that's one of the ones that always stick in my mind. Now, Mark may think differently. He'll comment on this, I'm sure, but hopefully he'll see it and say, "Yeah, Proctor, you're not too wrong there."
I love
I
that.
know and it's great that you can start something new as well. If here is an award that didn't exist, and then being able to have a first recipient and starting to implement it.
Yeah. It's very cool.
Beautiful. Well, this wraps up our episode, Brian. I could have not thought of anyone more special but you to come and celebrate Thanksgiving with us. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there, for anyone who celebrates. Thank you so much, Brian, for being on the show and always highlighting the good side of being human. I love that.
Yes.
Well, thank you for having me, ladies, and don't change those intro pics, because you're both of you have the best visuals with your eyes on those. Every time I see this, I laugh. So keep it up.
Yep. WTF.
Exactly. Well, thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Yeah.